My daughter stood at the front of the chapel, dabbing her eyes with a silk handkerchief that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget. She looked perfect. Black designer dress, pearl earrings, her blonde hair swept into an elegant updo. She looked like a grieving daughter straight out of a magazine spread. But I saw her checking her phone under the pew. I saw her husband Derek yawning during the eulogy. I saw the way they both kept glancing at their watches like my wife's funeral was an inconvenience standing between them and a dinner reservation. When the service ended, Stephanie walked over to me. She didn't hug me. She stood 3 feet away like I was contagious. "You should probably leave before the reception, Dad," she whispered. "Derek's business partners are coming. We don't want them asking questions about why Mom's ex-husband is hanging around." Ex-husband. That's what I was to her now. Not the man who changed her diapers. Not the man who taught her to ride a bike. Not the man who worked double shifts so she could go to private school. Just the ex-husband. "I was married to your mother for 38 years, Stephanie, and divorced for the last 6. She smiled, but there was no warmth in it. "Let's not make this awkward. The lawyer is reading the will tomorrow at 10. Don't bother coming. Mom made it very clear where you stand." Derek appeared at her elbow. He was wearing a suit that cost more than my truck. He had that look on his face, the one he always wore around me, like he was tolerating a stray dog that had wandered into his backyard. "Rich," he said. "Not Richard. Not Mr. Hayes. Just Rich. Like we were buddies at a bar." "Stephanie's right. This is a family matter now. You understand." I looked at him. I looked at this man who had never worked a real job in his life, who had married my daughter for her trust fund and spent the last decade convincing her that her parents owed her everything. "I understand perfectly," I said. I walked out of the chapel. I didn't make a scene. I didn't argue. I just walked to my 15-year-old pickup truck, parked between their matching Mercedes, and I drove away. They thought they had won. They thought the old electrician was finally out of the picture, shuffled off to die alone in his 2-bedroom apartment while they divided up Margaret's empire. They didn't know about the phone call I had made that morning. They didn't know about the meeting I had scheduled for 9 o'clock tomorrow, 1 hour before the will reading. They didn't know that the man they had just dismissed, like hired help, was about to become the most important person in their lives. My name is Richard Hayes. I am 66 years old. And this is the story of how I taught my daughter that the man who wired every building in this city knows exactly where to cut the power. If you've ever been treated like you don't matter by the people who are supposed to love you, hit that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I want to see how far this story travels. Margaret and I got divorced 6 years ago, but it wasn't because we stopped loving each other. It was strategy. She had built a furniture empire from nothing, 32 stores across Colorado and Utah. When a supplier threatened a massive lawsuit over a contract dispute, our lawyer told us the smartest move was to separate our assets. A divorce on paper, a shield against the vultures. We stayed legally divorced. But every Sunday night, Margaret came to my apartment. We cooked dinner together. We watched old movies. We talked about the business, about Stephanie, about the grandchildren we hoped to have someday. Stephanie didn't know any of this. She only saw what she wanted to see. A rich mother who funded her lifestyle. A poor father who embarrassed her at country club events. She stopped inviting me to Christmas 3 years ago. She said it was too complicated with Derek's family. What she meant was that my flannel shirts and calloused hands didn't fit the image she was trying to project. I didn't fight it. I just stepped back. I let her have her perfect life with her perfect husband in their perfect house on the hill. I figured she'd come around eventually. I figured wrong. The morning of the will reading, I arrived at the law office of Peterson and Associates at 9 o'clock sharp. Howard Peterson had been Margaret's attorney for 25 years. He met me at the elevator. "Richard," he said, shaking my hand. "Are you ready?" "As ready as I'll ever be." He led me into his private conference room. There was coffee waiting and a thick leather binder on the table. I didn't touch either. I just sat and waited. At 10 o'clock, the receptionist buzzed. "Mr. Peterson, your 10 o'clock is here. Send them in." The door opened. Stephanie swept in like she owned the place. She was wearing a different black dress today. Even more expensive than yesterday's. Derek followed behind her, already reaching for his phone. They stopped cold when they saw me. "What is he doing here?" Stephanie demanded. "Please sit down, Mrs. Mitchell," Peterson said. "Mr. Hayes has every right to be present. He's not family anymore. He gave up that right when he divorced Mom. Your mother specifically requested his presence. Please, sit." Stephanie sat. She chose the chair farthest from me. Derek sat next to her, still scrolling on his phone. Peterson opened the binder. He didn't waste time with pleasantries. He went straight to the numbers. The estate of Margaret Hayes consists of the following. The primary residence at 445 Summit Drive, valued at $3.2 million. The vacation property in Aspen, valued at $2.8 million. The furniture retail business, currently operating 32 locations, valued at $18 million. Liquid assets, including stocks, bonds, and cash accounts totaling approximately $8 million. Total estate value is estimated at $32 million. Derek's phone clattered to the table. Stephanie's eyes went wide. They had known Margaret was wealthy, but hearing the number said out loud was different. It made it real. It made it theirs. $32 million, Derek breathed. "Baby, we're set. We're actually set." Stephanie reached for his hand. She was already doing the math. I could see it in her eyes. The new house, the cars, the jewelry, the freedom to never work another day. Peterson cleared his throat. "To my daughter, Stephanie Mitchell, I leave nothing." The silence was absolute. Stephanie's mouth opened and closed like a fish. Derek looked like someone had punched him in the stomach. That's a mistake," Stephanie stammered. "Read it again." "There's no mistake," Peterson said. "To my daughter, Stephanie Mitchell, I leave nothing." "This is insane." Derek jumped up. Margaret loved Stephanie. She paid for everything. The wedding, the house, the cars. This has to be a forgery. Someone tampered with the will. Peterson waited for him to finish. Then he turned the page. "However," he read, "all assets, properties, and business holdings shall be transferred into the Margaret Hayes Family Trust. The trust is designed to preserve the estate for future generations while providing for family needs." "Trust?" Stephanie leaned forward. "What trust?" "I didn't agree to any trust. The trust was established 18 months ago. It's fully legal and binding." "Who controls it?" Derek demanded. "Who's the trustee?" Peterson closed the binder. He took off his glasses. He looked directly at me. "The sole trustee, with complete authority over all distributions, is Richard Hayes." I watched the color drain from my daughter's face. She turned to me slowly, like she was seeing me for the first time. "You?" she whispered. "You control the money?" "I do." "This is a joke." Derek laughed, but it was a desperate sound. "This is a sick joke. He's a retired electrician. He lives in a dump. He drives a truck older than my shoes. The truck runs fine," I said, "and my apartment is cozy." Stephanie stood up. Her chair scraped against the floor. "I'm contesting this. I'm hiring a lawyer. This will never hold up in court." "You're welcome to try," Peterson said. "But I should warn you, your mother spent considerable resources ensuring this trust is ironclad. Any attempt to contest it will be expensive, time-consuming, and ultimately futile." "We don't need her money," Derek sneered. "We have our own investments." I pulled a folder from my jacket pocket. I placed it on the table. "Derek," I said, "according to these records, you've lost approximately $1.4 million in cryptocurrency speculation over the past 3 years. Stephanie, you've maxed out 6 credit cards maintaining your lifestyle. Your combined debt is currently sitting at $800,000. Derek's face went red. "How do you have that?" Margaret knew everything. She kept records. She shared them with me. "You're lying." "Am I?" I opened the folder. "Would you like me to read the dates, the amounts, the account numbers?" "I have them all." Stephanie grabbed Derek's arm. "Let's go. We don't have to listen to this." They stormed toward the door. Derek yanked it open. Then he turned back. "This isn't over, old man. We'll find a way around you." We'll get what's ours. It was never yours, Derek. That's the part you never understood. The door slammed behind them. Peterson sighed. That went well. It went exactly how Margaret predicted it would. I picked up the coffee and took my first sip. It was cold, but I didn't mind. I had all the time in the world. The attack started within 48 hours. First came the letters. Lawyers I'd never heard of sending threatening correspondence about the trust. They claimed improper influence, elder abuse, fraud. The accusations were creative. They painted me as a manipulative ex-husband who had brainwashed a dying woman. Then came the social media campaign. Derek fancied himself an influencer. He had 30,000 followers from years of posting about his entrepreneur lifestyle. Now he turned that audience against me. My wife's father is holding her inheritance hostage, he said in a video that got 100,000 views. This man is a narcissist. He's abusing the system to punish his own daughter for his failed marriage. Please share this. Please help us fight back. The comments were vicious. People who had never met me were calling for my head. Someone found my address and posted it online. I had to disconnect my doorbell after strangers started showing up to yell at me. I sat in my apartment and watched it unfold. I didn't respond. I didn't defend myself. A good electrician knows that when the system is overloaded, you don't add more current. You wait for the surge to pass. Margaret had taught me that. 2 weeks after the will reading, Stephanie finally called. It was the first time I'd heard her voice since the law office. "Dad," she said. The word sounded foreign in her mouth. "We need to talk." "I'm listening. Derek and I have been thinking. Maybe we overreacted. Maybe we can work something out." "What did you have in mind?" "A monthly allowance. Something reasonable. We're not asking for the whole trust. Just enough to maintain our lifestyle while we get back on our feet." "How much?" "50,000 a month." I did the math. 600,000 a year. At that rate, the trust would be empty in decades, not generations. "No. Dad, please. We're drowning. The creditors are calling. Derek's investment partners are threatening to sue. We need help. I'm not releasing trust funds to pay for Derek's gambling in the stock market. It wasn't gambling. It was investing. There's a difference? You don't understand business, Dad. You never did. You just twisted wires your whole life." I let the insult hang in the air. Then I spoke slowly, carefully. I twisted wires in hospitals and power plants and factories. I kept the lights on for people who never knew my name. I worked in the dark so others could live in the light. That's my business, Stephanie. What's yours? She hung up. The next phase came a week later. They got creative. I was washing dishes when someone knocked on my door. I opened it to find 2 police officers and a woman in a white coat. "Mr. Hayes?" the officer asked. "That's me." "Sir, we've received a report that you may be a danger to yourself or others. We have a court order for a psychiatric evaluation." I looked past them. Stephanie was standing by a sedan in the parking lot. She wasn't crying this time. She was watching with cold calculation. "Who filed the report?" I asked. "Your daughter, sir. She's concerned about your mental state." The woman in the white coat stepped forward. "Mr. Hayes, I'm Dr. Whitmore. I just need to ask you a few questions." "Ask away. Do you know what day it is?" "Tuesday. March 14th. "Do you know where you are?" "My apartment. Building C, Unit 7, Pinewood Village." "Have you had any thoughts of hurting yourself or others?" "No." "Have you experienced any confusion, memory loss, or disorientation?" "No." Dr. Whitmore frowned. She looked at her clipboard, then at me, then at Stephanie in the parking lot. "Mr. Hayes seems lucid and oriented," she said to the officers. "I don't see grounds for involuntary commitment." "What?" Stephanie marched over. "That's impossible. He's clearly delusional. He thinks my mother wanted him to control everything. He's paranoid. He's seeing conspiracies everywhere." "Ma'am, suspicion of your motives isn't the same as paranoia. Frankly, it seems quite rational given the circumstances." The officers apologized for the disturbance. They left. Dr. Whitmore gave me her card, in case I needed to talk to someone. Stephanie stood in my doorway, shaking with rage. "This isn't over," she hissed. I know, I said. It's just beginning. I closed the door in her face. The real escalation came 3 months into the war. Derek had found a buyer for the Aspen property, a tech billionaire who wanted a mountain retreat and didn't ask questions about ownership disputes. Derek had forged my signature on the sale documents. He had hired a notary who owed him a favor. He thought he was clever. He wasn't. I had eyes everywhere. Margaret's loyal employees at the furniture company, her old friends in the legal community, her financial advisor who had managed her accounts for 30 years. They all kept me informed. I showed up at the closing. The conference room was elegant. Glass walls, leather chairs, a view of the mountains Derek thought he was about to sell. He was sitting at the head of the table, a pen in his hand, ready to sign away $2.8 million of property that belonged to the trust. I wouldn't sign that if I were you, I said from the doorway. Derek jumped up. What are you doing here? This is a private meeting. This is a fraudulent meeting. I walked to the table. I placed my hand on the document. This property belongs to the Margaret Hayes Family Trust. Any sale requires my authorization. I have not authorized this sale. The buyer looked uncomfortable. His lawyers started whispering. He's lying, Derek said. He's the one committing fraud. Stephanie is the rightful heir. This trust nonsense is just a technicality. Call your title company, I told the buyer. Have them run a search right now. See whose name is on the deed. The buyer pulled out his phone. He made the call. The room was silent for 5 minutes. Then his face changed. He looked at Derek like he was seeing him for the first time. The deed is held by the Margaret Hayes Family Trust, the buyer said slowly. This man has no authority to sell. Derek's face went white. The buyer stood up. His lawyers started packing their briefcases. I don't know what you were trying to pull here, the buyer said, but if I were you, I'd find a good attorney. You're going to need one. They left. Derek stood alone in the empty conference room. You ruined everything, he whispered. No, Derek, you ruined yourself. I just turned on the lights. I walked out. Behind me, I heard the sound of Derek punching the wall. The breaking point came on a Tuesday in September. I was at the furniture company's headquarters, reviewing the quarterly reports with Margaret's old team. We had decided to keep the business running, to preserve the jobs of 300 employees who depended on those stores. My phone buzzed. It was Howard Peterson. Richard, we have a problem. Stephanie filed an emergency petition this morning. She's claiming you've been embezzling from the trust. That's absurd. I know. But she found a judge willing to freeze the trust assets until an investigation is completed. Every account is locked as of 1 hour ago. How long will the investigation take? Months. Maybe longer. I hung up. I looked out the window at the Denver skyline. Margaret had built all of this from nothing. She had started with a single store and a dream. Now her own daughter was tearing it apart. My phone buzzed again. A text from an unknown number. Meet me at Mom's house tonight. Alone. We need to end this. It was from Stephanie. I knew it could be a trap. I knew Derek might be waiting with lawyers or police or worse. But I also knew that eventually, every confrontation has to happen face to face. You can't fix a broken circuit from across the room. I drove to Summit Drive. The house was dark. Margaret's Mercedes was still in the garage. No one had moved it since the funeral. The garden was overgrown. The windows were dusty. I found Stephanie in the living room. She was sitting on the floor surrounded by boxes. Margaret's things, photo albums, old letters, the detritus of a life being picked apart. You came, she said without looking up. You asked. I wasn't sure you would. I sat down across from her. Between us was a box of photographs. Margaret and me on our wedding day. Stephanie as a baby. Family vacations from decades past. I found these in the attic, Stephanie said. I was looking for valuables, things we could sell. Instead, I found memories. Those aren't worth anything to collectors. I know. She picked up a photo. It was the 3 of us at Stephanie's 5th birthday party. Margaret was laughing. I was covered in cake. Stephanie was grinning like she'd discovered the meaning of happiness. What happened to us, Dad? She whispered. You stopped calling me Dad. I stopped calling you a lot of things. She finally looked at me. Her eyes were red. She looked older than 34. She looked exhausted. Derek said you were holding me back. He said you were jealous of Mom's success. He said the divorce was your fault. And you believed him. I wanted to believe someone. And he was there. He was confident. He made everything seem simple. Rich people good. Poor people bad. Winners and losers. I was a winner. You were a loser. I didn't want to see it that way. But you did. She didn't deny it. I reached into the box. I pulled out an envelope that was taped to the bottom. It had my name written on it in Margaret's handwriting. I've been saving this, I said. I found it last week when I was cleaning out her office. She left instructions for me to open it only if things got bad. What's in it? I opened the envelope. Inside was a flash drive and a handwritten letter. The letter was short. Richard, if you're reading this, Stephanie has done something terrible. I'm sorry I couldn't fix her. I tried for years. I gave her everything she asked for, and it was never enough. The drive contains a video I recorded last year. I hoped I would never have to use it. I hoped she would change. Show it to her if you must. Maybe it will help her understand. I love you both. That never changed. Margaret, I looked at my daughter. Your mother made a video before she died. I haven't watched it. I wanted to wait for the right moment. What kind of video? I pulled out my phone. I connected it to the television above the fireplace. I inserted the flash drive. Margaret appeared on screen. She was thin, pale, clearly sick, but her eyes were sharp. She was sitting in this very room, in the chair by the window where she used to read. Stephanie, she said. Her voice was weak but clear. If you're watching this, it means you've done exactly what I feared you would do. Stephanie's hand flew to her mouth. I know about the money, sweetheart. I know you and Derek have been taking from my accounts for years. The jewelry you claimed was stolen, the checks you forged, the credit cards you opened in my name. I didn't, Stephanie whispered. I have the records. I have the proof. I could have turned you in. I could have pressed charges. But you're my daughter. I couldn't do that to my own child. Margaret paused. She wiped her eyes. I set up the trust because I love you. I know that sounds backward. I know you think I did it to punish you. But I did it to save you. If you got $32 million, Derek would take it all. He would drain you dry and leave you with nothing. He doesn't love you, Stephanie. He loves your access to money. Without the money, you'll finally see him for what he is. Stephanie was crying now. Real tears. Not the performance from the funeral. Your father is the only person I trust to protect you from yourself. He doesn't want the money. He never did. He just wants you to be happy. He wants to see you become the person you could be, instead of the person Derek has made you. Margaret looked directly at the camera. It felt like she was looking directly at me. Richard, I'm sorry for leaving you with this mess. Take care of our girl. Break her heart if you have to. It's the only way to save her. The screen went black. The silence lasted a long time. Stephanie stared at the empty screen. Then she stared at her hands. Then she stared at the photographs scattered across the floor. She knew. Stephanie whispered. She knew everything. She always did. The jewelry. The checks. I thought I was being careful. Your mother built an empire from nothing. Did you really think you could fool her? Stephanie pulled her knees to her chest. She looked like a child again. A lost little girl who had wandered too far from home. What do I do now? That depends on what you want. I want. She stopped. She thought. I don't know what I want anymore. Derek says he wants the money. The lawyers say they want to fight. Everyone wants something from me. But I don't know what I want for myself. I moved closer. I sat next to my daughter for the first time in years. Your mother wanted you to find out. She believed that underneath all the mistakes, underneath all the greed and the lies, there was still a good person in there. I believe that too. How can you? After everything I've done, because I wired your nursery when you were born. I installed nightlights in every room so you wouldn't be scared of the dark. I ran extension cords through the backyard so you could have lights in your treehouse. I spent my whole life keeping the lights on for you, Stephanie. I'm not going to stop now. She collapsed against me. She sobbed into my shoulder like she used to do when she was small, when the world was scary and I was the only one who could make it safe. I held my daughter. I felt the years of anger and resentment slowly draining away. What about Derek? She asked. That's your choice. He's going to be furious when he finds out about the video. Probably. He might try something desperate. Let me worry about that. She pulled back. She wiped her eyes. I want to make this right, Dad. I don't know how, but I want to try. Then try. That's all any of us can do. We sat together in the dark house until the sun came up. We didn't talk about money or lawyers or the future. We just talked. About Margaret. About the past. About the people we used to be and the people we wanted to become. It was a start. Derek didn't take it well. When Stephanie told him she was dropping the lawsuits, he lost control. He screamed. He threw things. He called her every name I can't repeat. Then he made his move. He tried to forge trust documents authorizing the sale of the furniture business. He found a buyer overseas who didn't care about American legal disputes. He thought he could complete the deal before anyone noticed. He was wrong. The FBI had been watching him for weeks. The cryptocurrency losses weren't just bad investments. They were part of a money laundering scheme connected to an international fraud ring. Derek had been using Margaret's business accounts to clean dirty money for people who didn't tolerate mistakes. They arrested him at the airport, trying to flee to a country with no extradition treaty. He was carrying a suitcase full of forged documents and a one-way ticket. I visited Stephanie that night. She was sitting in her empty living room. The furniture had been seized as evidence. The Mercedes was gone. The country club membership was canceled. They're giving him 15 years, she said. Maybe more with the federal charges. I'm sorry. Are you? I thought about it. I'm sorry you had to go through this. I'm not sorry he's gone. She almost smiled. Mom was right about him. Your mother was right about most things. What happens now? That depends on you. I handed her a document. It was a trust amendment I had prepared with Howard Peterson. The trust will continue to preserve the estate, but I'm adding a provision. You can draw a modest living allowance, enough to pay rent and buy groceries and live a simple life. If you want more, you have to earn it. Get a job. Build something of your own. Prove you can stand on your own feet. You're giving me an allowance like I'm a teenager. I'm giving you a foundation like you're my daughter. She read the document. Her eyes stopped on one paragraph. This says the furniture business will continue operating. It says the employees will keep their jobs. 300 people depend on those stores. Your mother would never forgive me if I let them suffer. And the profits? Reinvested in the business. Bonuses for the workers. Scholarships for their children. The money goes back to the people who earned it. Stephanie set the document down. What about the house? The Aspen property. The house will become a community center. Job training. Financial literacy. Support services for families in crisis. The Aspen property will be a retreat for employees who need a break. You're giving it all away. I'm using it the way your mother wanted it used. She told you this? She didn't have to. I knew her for 44 years. Some things don't need to be said out loud. Stephanie signed the document. It was the first real signature she had given me in a decade. 5 years have passed since that night in the living room. The Margaret Hayes Community Center opened 3 years ago. We've served 10,000 families. We've helped 2,000 people find jobs. We've sent 43 kids to college on scholarships funded by the furniture business. I'm 71 years old. My knees hurt when it rains. I can't climb ladders like I used to. But every Tuesday morning, I teach a basic electrical safety course at the center. I show young people how circuits work, how to read a breaker box, how to keep the lights on for their families. Stephanie works at the center now. She started as a volunteer, answering phones and sorting donations. Now she manages the job training program. She makes $42,000 a year. She lives in a 2-bedroom apartment. She drives a used Honda. She's happier than I've ever seen her. Last week, she brought someone to dinner. His name is Marcus. He's a social worker she met at the center. He drives an older car than she does. He doesn't know anything about cryptocurrency or country clubs or designer handbags. He looks at her like she's the most important person in the room. I approve. Derek sent a letter from prison last month. He's up for parole next year. He wanted Stephanie to write a character reference. She threw the letter away. Some circuits aren't worth fixing. I walked through the center yesterday, checking the wiring in the new computer lab. The building used to be Margaret's furniture showroom. Now it's full of people learning skills, finding hope, building better lives. I stopped at the dedication plaque in the lobby. There's a photo of Margaret and me from our wedding day. Below it are the words she asked me to include. The brightest light is the one that shines for others. I touched the plaque. I thought about everything we had built together, and everything I had almost lost. Stephanie found me standing there. Dad? You okay? Just remembering. Missing her? Always. She put her arm around me. We stood together, father and daughter, looking at the face of the woman who had loved us both enough to break us. She would be proud, Stephanie said. Of the center? Of you. Of what you did for me. Even when I didn't deserve it. You always deserved it. You just forgot for a while. She squeezed my shoulder. She went back to work. I stood alone in the lobby. Through the windows, I could see the Denver skyline, the buildings I had helped power for 40 years. I am Richard Hayes. I am 71 years old. I spent my career in the dark, crawling through ceilings and basements, making sure other people could flip a switch and have light. Now I understand that some darkness can't be fixed with wires. Some circuits run through the heart. You have to find the break, isolate the damage, and rebuild from the ground up. It takes patience. It takes love. It takes the courage to cut the power when everything in you wants to keep the current flowing. My daughter learned to stand in the dark. And when she was ready, she learned to build her own light. That's the only inheritance that matters. If you believe that tough love is sometimes the only way to save the people you care about, hit that like button and subscribe. We have more stories coming. Stories about fathers who refuse to give up. Stories about families finding their way back. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. The lights are on.